Limits of the Flesh, Chapter 90, Fantasy Fiction by Azazyel. Micheal and Gabriel were sitting across from one another in another room that had been swept over extensively by several exorcists to check for sources of spying. They shared a long silence before Micheal spoke out gently. "I am willing to take on the burden of refusing that deal if you don't like the idea, my sister," he offered gently. But Gabriel smiled softly at her brother and fellow child of their Holy Father and spoke with all due love she had within her heart to her brother. "I have made up my mind, dear brother. A true holy matrimony to bring together heaven and hell will bring about millennia of peace. Jake Barris is well known as a family man that our father would have accepted into being one of his saints to be elevated into an angel." Micheal couldn't help but roll her eyes as he spoke dryly. Father would have had conniptions at seeing Jake warping people's very souls. But then again he was the one who sealed so many souls within sacred gears to power them. So saying more would be throwing stones within glass houses. He finished tiredly with some amount of weariness. The soldier of God had been shouldering the weight of maintaining the divine realm of heaven for millennia. And he was getting tired. Not physically, no. He as one of the greatest creations of his Father wasn't so weak to fall to physical exertion. No, his very essence and soul were being burned away to fuel the divine realm of heaven, as no matter how powerful he was. He was stronger than many actual true gods in truth, but in the end, he was not at all a god. He had no spark of divinity that turned faith into energy to fuel said realm. Whether it be fallen, devil, or the vaunted angels of heaven, all had regressed greatly compared to their peak. So many angels fell during the war, either to their desires being too greatly inflamed due to their stress, or worse. They fell in the senseless battle that was the war between the spurned and driven insane Lucifer, and God, who wanted to suppress Lucifer into just being the ruler of the underworld. And angels were going to be the first of the Abrahamic faith's factions to disappear, with heaven falling apart, as Micheal knew down inside his very bones that he simply didn't have another couple centuries within him to keep fueling heaven and keep running around to keep his faction safe from the other pantheons and factions. Heaven needed true allies, and a vicious biokinetic who broke an entire faction's army, killing two of their powerful gods without even being at the invasion. He would be the perfect backer to protect heaven when he inevitably needed to cast himself into the flames of heaven to fuel its eternal life. "Micheal, I got a question." Gabriel started, with her head tilting to the side cutely and drawing Micheal out of his thoughts, making him smile indulgently as he nodded to his sister, who continued with some confusion. "Will you serve as the minister of the wedding, or will you act as the father or brother to give me away?" she ended. Micheal actually chuckled as he looked at Gabriel and said with some humor, "I am pretty sure your guardian in Griselda will have some very firm words with me if I do not perform the duties of a minister. Plus she..." Micheal shook his head and a sad smile crossed his face as he continued tiredly. "She does wish to speak with Jake about a chance to talk to her adoptive daughter on the other side. After the terrible incident that occurred at Koho, Japan, and the Excaliburs." Gabriel's gentle smile died and she coldly sniffed as she said with zero emotion, "Kokabeel had fallen farther than most all of our kindred. His fate of a death in battle by Jake's creations was the best fate he would have faced should Seraphal had gotten a hold of him. Unsaid were the losses of more than 100,000 lives as the violently unstable Excalibur combination going off like a nuke and the uncaring attacks of Kokabeel, a 12-winged fallen angel, had all but leveled Koho, which had brought great stress to the Abrahamic faith, as many factions used the death of the Shinto lands to pressure them. Griselda obviously wanted to see her adopted daughter Zenobia, but thankfully Griselda, one of the strongest exorcists of the age, held a calm head and didn't rush at Jake trying to demand his help. Finally Gabriel sighed and said evenly, "I will ask Jake if Griselda could at least say her goodbyes to her daughter. That will be the bridal price, as raising the dead is a great feat and will avoid hell or Jake having to deliver an artifact we likely wouldn't use and just leave locked up." And Micheal nodded, with his mind agreeing with Gabriel's thought process, but then he had a thought that struck him. And even as Gabriel cutely began munching on some snacks as they waited for True Peace Conference to begin, the thought wouldn't escape him. "Gabriel, my dear sister, how many children do you wish to make me the uncle of?" Micheal asked with a wide smile at the thought of beautiful blonde children running around with their bare feet making the signature clapping noises as they cheered as they ran through the halls of heaven. There was a moment where Gabriel froze, and then a beaming smile crossed her face as she clapped her hands together, and with pure holy light emanating from her form that reminded Michael of the great days when his family was together in heaven before Lucifer was banished. And Gabriel spoke with utter surety in her voice as Michael felt her voice become a divine mandate that struck his very soul. I am going to make my father proud. I am going to birth 12 holy scions of light that will match the original archangels with their purity, kindness, and love. Michael, for the first time in his multiple millennia of life, fainted on the couch, delaying the peace conference a whole extra hour.